That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Alright. JLA, Justice for All. This is one of the last collections of Grant Morrison's run on Justice League. It's when Mark Waid starts to come in and write a bit more. And we've got several stories collected in this one. So, the first one is the Shaggy Man story, and that is, hands down, my favorite in the volume. So it starts off strong. But we have General Waid Eiling, who's, of course, kind of usually a generic DC military guy who's always antagonistic toward the Justice League, kind of forming his own little super team of Marines, and you know, planning to have them take on the Justice League. But he also steals the capsule containing the Shaggy Man, who's an unstoppable monster of a villain that the Justice League fought a number of years ago, almost to a standstill, and didn't truly beat. They just incapacitated him for a while by storing him in a pod at the bottom of the ocean. So the issue, or the story arc, starts with that pod being stolen and the Justice League being attacked as they try to prevent it. They trick Green Lantern into not being able to make any constructs, so Aquaman has to rush him to the surface within minutes, otherwise Kyle will die. And going through that many layers of, or that many fathoms of depth that quickly causes the nitrogen bubbles in Aquaman's blood to expand, which succeeds in giving Aquaman the bends. It's pretty good, pretty good. So Aquaman's coughing up blood. That's pretty clever. You know, I like stuff like that when a super powerful hero is taken out by turning their superpower into a weakness. I think that's really clever. So anyway, the general informs the president that he's going to have his superpowered Marines fight the Justice League and take him down because they're too much of a threat. And the president says, wait a minute, what casualties are you talking about? What is this, Eiling? What are you talking about? An effective demonstration of our military superiority. No, call it off right now, Eiling. I didn't authorize this. No, Mr. President, I did. You may consider this a military coup if you like. I'll explain the details as we proceed. So you've got this crazed general taking over the U.S. government and stuff. And so the Justice League is lured into a trap, and then they have to deal with fighting the Ultramarines, who have, you know, crazy superpowers and stuff. And so the Justice League is being really just rounded up and hounded down and getting their asses handed to them. As much as I liked Kyle and the way the cool-ass things Grant Morrison had him do in the last issue, I will say Kyle kind of gets the short end of the stick in this entire volume. He gets kind of taken out over and over again. Gets taken out by mind waves, and in the first issue of this arc gets taken out by something else that's just causing him to vomit uncontrollably in this arc, so he can't do anything. So I'm a little like, Green Lantern needs some respect right now. Anyway, so the Justice League are trying their best to fight the Ultramarines. All the meanwhile, General Eiling is doing something with the Shaggy Man. And so Batman, Plastic Man, and Huntress try to infiltrate Eiling's military base and don't have a ton of luck doing that. Or get there, but he's already dead. They're not sure what to think. And it's revealed that that Eiling had transferred his brain into the Shaggy Man. Now, if you watch the Justice League Unlimited show, you'll remember an episode where the general character, who is Eiling, transferred his mind into one of the villain monster things or something like that, and became a giant unstoppable monster. And that's kind of what's going on here. I really like this line from him because Grant Morrison has such a great sense of character. The Shaggy Man. I never had a day unshaven since my daddy handed me my first razor. That Shaggy Man style had to go. You can call me the General and be nice about it, little lady. So yeah, Eiling's just in this unstoppable body that fought the Justice League to a standstill. Like Batman even goes so far as to straight cut off one of his arms, and it just immediately starts regrowing. Nice try. Genetically enhanced salamander tissue. Regenerative. I can survive any attack. I can regrow any limb. I feel no pain. Better run. I don't know why I'm doing this voice, but I like this voice for the General. Meanwhile, the other the other half of the Justice League are fighting the Ultramarines, and Superman kind of just stares them down in the middle of town, and they kind of realize who's on the right side and who's not. And the Ultramarines also realize that they've been manipulated and that they're going to die because of the bodies that they're in. That they can't survive. And Batman keeps fighting Shaggy Man, all that stuff. It's really cool. I do love this moment for Batman. And I talked about this in the volume with Prometheus in it. So Batman starts talking to Eiling. Too bad that brain isn't designed to support much activity. The Shaggy Man was practically mindless, territorial, primitive, poor at processing new information. In fact, as you think about that, and you realize I'm right, you're beginning to notice how difficult it is to think of any useful information at all. You'll mostly find that you want to sleep, and that any thoughts you have will take you deeper into the state of deep, deep hypnosis. So Grant Morrison in the 90s, I guess, had a thing for just talking people into hypnosis for superheroes. And honestly, it's a trick that's fine once. I think he's a little walking on eggshells to do it twice, but to be fair, there's several arcs in between that, so you probably only notice it in trade, or if you have a particularly good memory, but, I think it's a lot more clever here, and to be fair, it was Prometheus doing it in Justice League. It was Prometheus doing the hypnosis in the last time, not Batman. So maybe Batman picked up the trick. I don't know. But I thought it's a little iffy, but it's pretty cool that he's going to attack the Shaggy Man by hypnotizing him. Attack the mind, the one part that is vulnerable. But unfortunately for Batman's plans, Superman busts in at the last minute, trying to blow up the Shaggy Man. And Batman, of course, yells, "Superman, I almost had him." For the first time, he was vulnerable to psychological attack. Okay, plan B. I like that quite a bit. So they have to replan, re-strategize, and the Ultramarines join the Justice League in taking down the General. And transporting him across using a teleporter to transport him onto an asteroid in the middle of space where he has no hope of getting off, but because of his DNA, he won't die. And so he's just kind of left on this rock, and I love the little trick with the speech bubbles where they're just blank white. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. The Ultramarines go on to found a city that's going to, and they're going to be an international strike force loyal to no government. So it's a little iffy. I don't know if that's going to come back. I don't recall it. And then at the very end, Our Man shows up to take Jean's place on the League for a little while because Jean needs a break, and says that he has come to help save the League from the war with the Fifth Dimension, which isn't happening yet. then we get the Amazo story, where the League's trying to recruit more, and including Dr. or Professor Ray Palmer, the Atom. They've also discovered an Amazo robot that is set to turn on in half an hour and try to break his creator out of jail. And so the League starts taking on the Amazo robot because he wakes up too early, and they keep sending in more and more heroes to try to fight the Amazo robot so they can maybe overwhelm him before he can absorb their powers. And that just doesn't work and ends up making him more powerful. And then the Atom shows up with the plan to save the day. Because the Amazo robot is programmed to copy the powers of the Justice League. I'm going to say that again. He is programmed to copy the powers of the Justice League. So the Atom shows up, whispers something in Superman's ear, and Superman says, "The JLA is officially disbanded." Amazo loses all his powers. Fucking love it. That is comic book writing gold right there. Fuck your super punches and your Kamehameha waves. That shit is what makes comics, and I adore it. That is absolutely incredible writing. I love shit like that so fucking much. You have no idea. That kind of stuff is my crack. I can read that 1,000,000 times over and never ever get bored. God, I love that. So that story was written by Mark Millar, who's of course Grant Morrison's protege. So that was pretty good stuff. And so the Atom, even though he was reluctant to join the Justice League, he has agreed to join on a part-time basis, with the proviso that he doesn't have to do monitor duty. I like that. That was a good-ass story. Then the next story arc is called Crisis Times 5. And this is absolutely bonkers in the most Grant Morrison way possible, as the fifth dimension has forces go to war with the third dimension. So for those that don't know what the DC Universe's fifth dimension is, that would be characters like Mr. Mxyzptlk and Batmite. Little magical imps that can do anything they want to reality. We even get like a team that I didn't know existed, and I want more of it because it's awesome. I gotta see if I can find them. They're introduced with like a proper panel of all four of them and everything. Oh, there we go. So we've got Highfather. Who's that one? I can't remember this guy here. We got Highfather, the Wizard Shazam, a Guardian of Oa, the Phantom Stranger, this man should not exist, and yet man, I don't know who that guy is with the in the middle there between Highfather and the Guardian. My DC. Too many old white guys with beards. No, but that's really cool that they call themselves the Quintessence, and they are the highest. They're some of the highest intellects in the DC universe, all working together. Where is this? This guy had a great line. The Guardian had one of the best lines ever, and I absolutely adored it. Because it's the most Grant Morrison thing I think you could ever write, because it deals so much with your perceptions of how things work, and I really, really like that. I gotta find the Quintessence again. Did they not show up in this first issue? I thought I just saw Guardian now. Because it's just such a good fucking line. And I know it was the Guardian that said it, but where he said it is the problem of finding. God, I should really get better at bookmarking these. Okay, it was on the panel. I looked for no reason. The power of the entity it contains is also beyond calculation. Our numerical system has no means of describing such orders of magnitude. My analysis of the situation suggests it may be too late to prevent the two Jinn entities from clashing and threatening the universal grid. The idea that you can have a level of devastation beyond the ability to calculate because of the fifth dimension is the most Grant Morrison thing I think you could write, and does a great job of selling the threat. And of course, Grant Morrison's whole thing is like, okay, we've got the big guns of the DC universe together on the Justice League. What kind of threats will they be dealing with that it needs them? And of course, it's stuff on the level of the level of universal damage is so incomprehensible that you can't use numerical systems to calculate it. And there's stuff like that all over the book. The idea of the limits of your knowledge, the limits of your ability to perceive the reality of the world, are so far beyond what you can ever hope to achieve when it comes to fifth dimensional beings. And that's really, really cool. So there's like two genies fighting, and they're trying to save the universe. The JSA teams up with the JLA, which is pretty cool. Steel gets his ass handed to him by this guy called Triumph, who was one of the founding members of the Justice League, but due to Justice League time travel events, was forgotten and erased from history with his powers, and now was never part of the League. No one remembers him and all this stuff, so that's kind of interesting. And so he wanted revenge and unleashed one of the Jinn into the world to cause havoc and destroy the Justice League. And you've got such crazy shit. Alan Scott and Zuriel go to free the Spectre, who the Jinn have trapped in a world. So Alan Scott and Zuriel go to free the Spectre, and they notice that the world time moves differently, so they can conceivably just wait, and the world will collapse upon itself, and then they can free the Spectre without threatening the life on the world. And so they sit back and watch as civilizations rise, and Zuriel appears to try to communicate with them at one point because he's an angel. He has to talk to them. After a half hour, the angel went down to see how things had changed, and they built a temple around him. It had already crumbled by the time he opened his mouth to speak. His first word took 750 years to say. At the speed they were advancing, he must have seemed to them like some impossible silent statue, enduring for generations. That's so cool! That's so, like, I would never be able to think of something that nuts about, like, time moving that quick around a thing. So anyway, lots and lots of craziness. Captain Marvel and Green Lantern get transported to the fifth dimension and have to escape into the streets and try to find someone to help them. Our Man's floating around the Justice League. The force in the fifth dimension who's behind everything of these two entities fighting is named Quisp, who's apparently an Aquaman villain that I've never heard of before. I guess Aquaman got his own fifth dimension imp. And he's got an ultimatum of what it will take for him to stop these two fifth dimension entities from fighting. If you really want to avert a war no one can win, you have only one choice. So come now, show this child the true meaning of heroism. Which of you will give your life here and now to save the world? You'd better hurry. So, like, this is the scale of devastation we're dealing with, where we've got two Jinn fighting literally with the world. It's so knuckin' futz and just incomprehensibly big. Spectre's released, Batman starts fighting Triumph, and all kinds of craziness ensues. Green Lantern and Captain Marvel get help from the governing body of the fifth dimension, and bring them to Earth to help stop all the fighting and the destruction. Triumph is defeated by Superman and realizes that if he just asked to be back on the League, he maybe would have been allowed to. But he realizes that too late, as the Spectre, who's now been freed, shows up to deliver judgment upon him. Now keep in mind the Spectre is the wrath of God, and Zuriel is the kindness of God. So they don't like each other. That's kind of interesting that they get into a fight. So Zuriel spares Triumph's life, or gets the Spectre to spare Triumph's life. Also, Wildcat's in this, and they explain that he's got 9 lives. That's how he's able to be a superhero in his 70s. Okay. I don't know if that stuck, but okay. Anyway, Triumph, though his life was spared, he is still kept frozen because they don't know how dangerous he might be. Then the next story revolves around No Man's Land, and if you're curious at all about No Man's Land, I did a series on that. Reviewed No Man's Land, Road to No Man's Land, Cataclysm, all of the No Man's Land stuff. But this little story revolves around No Man's Land, and it's like, okay, so what was the Justice League doing during No Man's Land? Well, Huntress was on the Justice League, so the Justice League had a presence in Gotham. And they were also preventing would-be evil organizations from getting a foothold in Gotham and using it as some kind of quasi-state or experimental petri dish or something like that. So they were stopping Gotham from being conquered. So that's, for what they wanted No Man's Land to be, that's a reasonably satisfying explanation of what happened, or what the Justice League was doing. And then we've got another story centered sort of around the events of No Man's Land, where Batman gives the League a target to hunt down who may be responsible for it all. That target being Bruce Wayne. Everyone's like, what? And I should mention, this story is written by Mark Waid. So Bruce Wayne is being targeted by the League, except for Wonder Woman and Superman and the Flash, who are told to run around the Earth. So we got Big Barda, Orion, Kyle Rayner, Steel, and Plastic Man hunting down Bruce Wayne. Who once they find him, he immediately seems to know who they are and runs away. And meanwhile, Superman, the Flash, and Wonder Woman are circling the Earth looking for somebody, but no one's really sure who. The only thing they share in common is they're looking at themselves in the reflections. And then it's all revealed why that is. It's because Bruce Wayne is a white Martian. From the very first volume of Justice League by Morrison, the white Martians that were sleeper agents are still alive in the DC universe. Their minds have been wiped, so they don't really know who they are. But this white Martian was working at Wayne Enterprises during the No Man's Land crisis, and that caused a trauma which sort of helped wake it up and make it conscious of itself, at least on the far reaches of the brain. And so it was starting to come into its powers again. Justice League shows up, has to fight it, keep it from making telepathic contact with the other white Martian sleepers, so they can take him out. I love this scene with Orion. So Barda and Orion and Plastic Man are fighting the white Martian, and Orion's like, so he's afraid of fire? Barda. And Barda starts pouring gasoline on Orion so that he can step in it, catch on fire, and beat the shit out of the white Martian. And that's cool as shit. Damn, son. Orion don't give a fuck. So that was pretty kick-ass. Anyway, they're able to defeat the white Martian before he makes contact with the others. they're able to rewipe its mind and, save the day, but Batman is still suspicious of the others. Superman points out that the others still don't know Batman's Bruce Wayne, and maybe they should be worried about that. Maybe it's time to come forward. And Batman says, if I'd come forward about that years ago, we wouldn't have been able to use this plan because the White Martian would have been able to know they were looking for someone who wasn't actually Bruce Wayne. And he's like, yeah, but I feel like you should still have some trust for your teammates. And Bruce goes, I'm open to it when you are, Clark. So he's like, shit. And then there's also some curious stirrings about what exactly Barda and Orion are there for. So overall, really solid collection. I like everything in here. I just really like that Shaggy Man story. There's something about it that's so perfect, which is crazy for me because I love Fifth Dimension stuff. But since it's not Batmite or Mxyzptlk, I'm kind of just okay on it. But it's still really cool, really fun. And I loved the idea, of course, there'd be a team with High Father, the Guardians, the Phantom Stranger, Shazam, and someone. I don't know who. Anyway, yeah, really, really happy with this volume. Pretty solid stuff. Pretty happy with it. It's good, and I'm excited to read more. I love Grant Morrison's Justice League. It's too much fun. It is too much fun. You may get hurt having this much fun. All right, everyone. I think that'll do it for Trade Talk. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate every view I get. Anyway, next time we'll continue with more Grant Morrison Justice League. Till then, bye.
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.